However, with increased security comes a plethora of downsides that makes one question whether they are truly secure and just who is behind the invisible mask said to be protecting them. With the amazing variety of security technologies available in our modern world, we must be wary of who we allow access to our homes, on our computers, and even who watches us as we walk down the street. Here are the harms of intrusive security technology. Obviously, in order to use the internet, we need security. Nowadays, one cannot simply browse the internet without some sort of shield against the many forms of malware and cyber attacks that can plague an unprotected machine. That's where antiviruses come into play. In order to allow antiviruses to protect one's computer, special access must be granted to at least check files and monitor incoming and outgoing traffic. But what about these companies ensures our safety from them? There are no checks and balances to straighten these companies' moral backbones. Free antivirus software such as Avast and McAfee collect personal data as payment for their protection, but they don't disclose that. In fact, nowhere on the app does it say this is happening. This type of non-disclosure is taking advantage of the old, young, and the ignorant, and it's not these users' fault. Companies that are intertwined with our security and safety need to disclose what personal information is collected and what is done with it. This way users can consent to data collection and ensure they are not taking away the entire thing they claim to protect in the first place. Internet safety. Finding a utilitarian solution, that is, one that weighs the effects of everyone involved and attempts to provide the greatest good for the most people. The victims in this scenario are suffering the loss of their privacy and personal data, while companies are only losing the people who would click away if they knew what was really happening behind the scenes. Plenty of people would willingly choose to use the software, so companies would not be hit too hard, and the general public would be informed of the pros and cons of the decision they make. The option for consent is a necessary ingredient for a moral process. CCTV cameras, an even more famous yet distinctly different technology. They reside on the other side of intrusive security. This time, instead of one only paying with data and privacy, many foster government distrust, fear abuse, or plainly claim them as ineffective. Articles compiled and commented on by the ACLU have reported government employees abusing their power by anywhere from spying on women to blackmail. On top of that, there's no way to know how pervasive this problem is. From the examples given, an extreme amount of people have access to government information at their fingertips. Why is there not a better system in place to keep this from happening? The US also refuses to disclose all the data collection methods and uses as a matter of national security. While there may be an argument to be had there, it isn't even relevant, as even if the US government told us what they did with the data, many would still not believe them, and they have good reason. The point being, if we want to create a utilitarian solution, there are better steps to take. Limits need to be imposed on what CCTV cameras can do, as well as their pervasiveness in a growing technological society. If just regular CCTV cameras are already the cause of misuse all over the country, then what happens when they have facial recognition, AI, or worse? What about big cities implementing mass surveillance of public spaces? It's happening as I speak, and at the current rate with no laws or regulations in place, the US is increasing its already massive invasive public surveillance, without any public announcement as to the scope of the data they are collecting. On top of this, beneficial public surveillance is closer to a misconception rather than a useful form of security. For example, London is one of the most heavily surveyed cities in the world, with 20% of their security budget spent on CCTV cameras and related costs. Yet the London bombings were stopped with methods other than public surveillance. Studies have yet to prove a substantial decrease of crime in surveyed areas, usually dispersing the same amount of crime away from plain sight. The insane cost does not justify little to no increase in protection. With this, one can conclude that the privacy and governmental harassment negatives massively outweigh any potential benefit one might gain from CCTV cameras. Since at the very least, CCTV cameras are said to divert crime away from surveyed areas, there's a cost-effective and overall beneficial way to implement this technology. If limits are set on the technological capabilities of CCTV cameras, then some form of anonymity can still be preserved. For example, AI-enhanced cameras that can track a face everywhere they go is not necessary. Another limit should be on the amount of cameras that can be placed. This is a necessary restriction to stop the government from being able to monitor every inch of public space. Now, the technology does not have the ability to get out of hand, while still providing the perceived security and dispersion of crime. This provides the greatest good for society as a whole while minimizing the negative effects. Many services and technology marketed for security more than likely come with a secret price tag. If a service is marketed as free to use, one pays for it with a gradual relinquishing of personal data and private freedom. Evolving technology and the drive to collect every ounce of data is quickly taking over our modern world. Without clear discretionary rules about data collection, many more people will hand over their precious personal data none the wiser, later falling victim to the massive corporations profiting from it. Additionally, without clear limits on the spread and ability of public surveillance, the government will continue to spread its influence, just as has always been the case. Privacy is slowly being stripped away from everyday life, and without improvements to regulatory laws, data, privacy, and even security are all subject to the current system at large. Until then, we must be more wary of the often overlooked looming threat of intrusive security technology that influences every day of our lives.